Hello, everyone. It's Dr. B from Steps to the Future. Thank you so much for coming out to another College and Career Conversations with Dr. B. Tonight, I have a special guest with me, but we will get to the guest in a few minutes. I just wanted to remind people you saw that first slide. If you have a student that is college bound and you're looking for some assistance with college and career advising, please make sure you reach out to Dr. B at Steps to the Future. And our goal is to help families eliminate random acts of college planning. Before I continue, I want to give a shout out to a couple of people that I had the opportunity to do some educational work with the past 2 Saturdays. Now, even though I've been doing counseling like forever and ever, counselors always take refresher courses, and we're always in school too. We're always lifelong learners. So, for the last 2 Saturdays, I've been taking a 4 hour class with Ethan Sawyer. Those of you that know Ethan know him as the college essay guy, and with Dr. Steve Antonoff, who was the author of The College Finder. And we had the opportunity to learn from them about just some strategies and tips that were good for counselors and consultants on helping students build their college lists. So, like I said, we're always in school, and I just wanted to highlight their books. So, if people are interested, so this is The College Finder by Dr. Steve Antonoff. It has wonderful lists in there. It's called The College Finder, Choose the Right School that's right for you. And again, this will be in the show notes. Another book by Dr. Steve Antonoff. This one is called A Student of Colleges, and this book was written specifically for people who want to be independent educational consultants. So if you're thinking about going into this field, this is definitely a book that you want to get. It's called A Student of Colleges, Fundamentals of Independent Educational Consulting, and it's by Dr. Steve Antonoff, and I will make sure that is also in the show notes. And one of my favorite books is by the other teacher, Ethan Sawyer. It's called College Admission Essentials, a step-by-step guide to showing colleges who you are and what matters to you. And Ethan also has a fantastic website called the College Essay Guide that anybody could use their resources on there. But again, all of this information will be in the show notes. So stay tuned, everyone. I'd love to bring on my guest now, and here we go. Yay! There he is. So my guest this evening is Mr. Joel Monteiro. My God, what can I say? I have known Joel since before he was a teenager, and we used to be neighbors. Joel lived around the corner from me. You can see I've got on all my East Providence paraphernalia and my East Providence stuff in the back. Joel is a product of East Providence Public Schools. I worked in the East Providence Public Schools until I retired from there in 2008. So 30 plus years, the only public school system that I ever worked in, and had the opportunity to watch this young man grow up, go through the system, and then become an integral part of the school committee. So Joel, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think one of my only regrets is that I never had you as a teacher or guidance counselor through my years. So,
I know.
but maybe it was better. The neighbor part was probably a lot more enjoyable anyway. So
That is so true. So, folks, let me give you a little background on Joel and who he is. So, Joel has been working with Denspley Sorona for 18 years and counting. His 11 consecutive years where he has performed over the recommended performance. He is the first person of color hired with the Rhode Island Group for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. He is currently the chairman of the school committee for the East Providence School Department. He's 10 years on the committee. He's co-chair of the building committee for the new high school. And when those of you, when you get a chance, go on to East Providence High School Facebook page and see our fantastic, amazing, stupendous new high school, the one I didn't get a chance to teach in, but who knows? He is the father of 2 college students, and he is the husband of a recent college grad and newly hired marketing professional. So we've got college going on in this family, like right and left.
For
People
sure.
who are joining in, please make sure you let us know who you are. Leave us some comments, join in the conversation. Don't leave us out here hanging by ourselves. So, Joel, that was a mouthful. That was a mouthful. So let's back up a little bit. So tell us about Joel Monteiro, neighborhood kid, high school student.
Oh, geez. I guess I'll go with the average, right? Unassuming, unaware. I stayed for the most part, right? Stayed out of trouble.
Yes.
And I just kind of, I went through. I think I went through the motions, right? Of
Okay.
what was expected. Um, I look back, and one of the things that I would say to my kids when they were younger, middle school and forward is, I tell them, have a plan, and stick to your plan every day. They'd walk out the door, and it was kind of that annoying statement, be on your plan. I admittedly I didn't have one, other than go to school, do what you're supposed to do, graduate, go to college.
Okay.
And work,
And
and work.
worked.
Yeah,
Yes.
that.
Yes. So,
So
so, so Joe also during the time he was in high school. So those of you who know me, you know that we are a Roddy family, and when we used to go on vacations out of town or had to go out of town for whatever reason, Joel was our dog sitter. So our dogs loved having
yeah.
Joel take care of them because they got spoiled.
But you know what, I was thinking about this, coming into this session here, and the little pieces, how people contribute to your growth, right? And I say, as I was unaware and just average, but that responsibility that was given to
Hmm.
me by folks that otherwise, your husband would walk the dogs, and we were, oh my God, look at these dogs, right? But to have a neighbor, um, give someone that much trust, give me that much trust, and I thought, okay, maybe, so I do. There is something about me that someone sees, right? And you just kind of, I think, without realizing it, those are the little seeds that get planted. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. And you know what I love about you saying that? Because when we're talking with students now about, and they're trying to think about what it is about them that makes them either unique or how do they show who they are to the college, and they're working on their activity list on the Common Application, they don't realize all those little pieces like you just talked about. We knew you were trustworthy. We knew you were a kid that wasn't out there running the streets and acting crazy, because first of all, your parents weren't going to allow you to be out there running the street. Big Bob was not going to be having
No,
that.
he was not.
That was not going to be happening. So we knew that, and when we left on vacation, I think you're I think you're probably the only dog sitter we've had where we've never worried even a little bit. Like we've had a few since then, and since we moved here, but we never worried. We never worried when the dogs were in your care. Not one bit. We could go, leave the house, and know the house was going to be in one piece. Know the dogs were going to be well taken care of. So thank you for all those
So,
years of giving us um, peace of mind, peace of mind to leave our babies
although
behind.
I don't have the kids, have they forgiven me for the gerbils that did not make it through that first?
Yes, they have. I mean,
Yeah.
they've had so many things after
Yeah.
that. I don't think they remember the gerbils. So, Joel, you graduated from East Providence High School and
Yeah.
then went on to the University of Rhode Island. Now, tell me about your choice in going to the University of Rhode Island. How did you make that choice?
So, I'm glad you asked the question, because again, it had an impact on how, my wife and I, Marty and I, um, raised our two
Mhm.
kids, and when they went looking for school. So I essentially went to URI because it was in Rhode Island. Um, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew my parents, had the hope and expectation that I would go to school.
Mhm.
So yeah, I went to URI because they accepted me and they were in state, and I knew I wanted to stay on a campus.
Okay.
Um, so, but I was not bold enough and confident enough to go, to leave the state, and did not at the time didn't appreciate the growth portion of the education,
Mm.
which, and that ties back to the conversations with our two kids, where, our daughter, who will cross the stage in a couple of weeks at the University of Tampa,
Yes.
and um, we nudged her there for that reason. Like, she wanted to go, and then of course, reality
Mhm.
set in. And then our son, who's in New York City at Pace, again, neither one of them went to those schools. I mean, they have good programs. My daughter's,
Mhm.
a marketing major. They have a strong business program,
Yes.
but they uh, they went away for the growth piece, and we're happy they did. So yeah, URI was my comfort.
That was your comfort zone,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, that was your comfort zone. I just wanna break in a minute here. Your sister Christine is
thanks.
watching, and, I guess when we were talking about Big Bob and, how he could be acting up around here, she's letting us know, yep, she agrees, definitely could
Yeah,
not be, messing up around, Big Bob during those days. Thank you so much, Christine, for joining in, we really appreciate it. And the others that are joining in, please make sure you throw your comments in there and join in the conversation. So while you were at URI, which you went to because, as you said, it was your comfort zone, um, what did you do besides go to class?
so I worked. I worked from the age of 15, right through till today. So when I was at URI, I had a job at home on the weekends, and I got a job on campus. I did some intramural sports, flag football and basketball, just some low end recreational stuff. Um, had a girlfriend at school, so that was a lot of the social hours and class. I was an average student. Um, went to class, did what I
Mhm.
had to do, but um, yeah, I didn't do a lot of the, everybody thinks, oh, you're all right, party and this
Right.
and that. I mean, I was working. Like I said, on the weekends I was coming home, and actually, your husband, I'd come see you guys, right? And that was a benefit of having, so some kids don't have one strong home, right? So I had two strong homes
Yeah.
on my street that I could go visit, at
Yeah.
any point in time. And the Drake's cakes always were a welcome. Bringing those pastries back to the dorm,
Oh yeah.
you know, um, but yeah, and so when I went in, I was undecided going into URI, and I wanted to do something at I thought education wise,
Okay.
someone who was an average student, right? But I thought, I wanted to do something where I was interacting with kids, and I don't know, didn't know exactly what. So my first year or so, I took an intro class, and then when I started thinking about it, wait a minute, you'll have to major in something,
Yeah.
um, and I thought, okay, I'm really not crazy about, but like I'm going through the subjects. So yeah, maybe education isn't the way to go. So then I switched over to the business
Okay.
program. There was someone in the dorm that was in the marketing class, and I thought, okay, involves communicating with people and talking to
Mhm.
people, and um, so I kind of, not with a lot of energy and excitement, but again with the goal to have a degree in 4 years, and I'm just being real, right?
Right.
Um, I said, okay, I can do that. I can buy into that. I thought, but it was interesting.
Okay. That's interesting. That felt like a loaded word there.
It was interesting. I look back, the only minority in my business classes.
Okay.
So it was a struggle, I think, for me personally, when it comes to that confidence thing, right? Again,
Yes.
going back, like being someone who I'm just going to do my job, right? Just
Right.
go to work, do your job. And I was sitting in class, and I remember looking around often saying, yeah, I don't belong here. There's no one with my background, because on campus, the minorities that I knew, people of color that I knew, they were, most of them were taking some of the other um, social type areas, whether it be, whether it's criminal justice,
Right.
they went into social work and a lot of, um, great fields. But I didn't know, there were none that I knew that were going down the business track,
Okay.
you know. But yeah, so that was something that I, constantly saying, okay, am I supposed to be in this group?
Mm.
So I mean, I did it, but yeah, it was an interesting piece.
Yeah. So we have one of East Providence High School's finest with us this evening, Richard Martin, and he's saying that it's very difficult when you're only one or one of few, and that is so true. Both of us have experienced that, Mr. Martin and I. So we understand that feeling, and that's one of the reasons why I really want to bring Black and Brown people to this platform, because representation matters. And it's so important for people to see, for young folks and older folks too, to see people that look like them in various fields. I mean, yes, everybody knows Oprah Winfrey, everybody knows Michael Jordan, everybody knows all of these other well known people, but there's everyday average people, I'm one of them, that are out there doing their thing. Our names aren't well known. So it's important for students to see that you don't have to have that name that everybody recognizes, that, we're all out here doing our job. And while I'm talking, we have a special guest here. Mom is watching. So thank you, Mrs.
Hey,
Monteiro.
Mom.
We really appreciate you. And Mom was one of those ones that kept you under check. So we knew when you were taking care of the dog,
Yes,
Mom and Dad were just around the
yes.
corner. So we weren't going to be worried about anything happening to those animals.
So
So keep
yeah,
going.
no, I was gonna say. So one of the things that you just hit on about representation, right? So I had that piece where I wanted to give back, and I think it was just that, um, I don't know if regret, but definitely wishing that I knew, um, that I had more confidence and knew more about the opportunities that I might have. So when I graduated from URI, I was helping out with the local Pop Warner football team, and the kids were 12, 13 years of age. And fast forward about 6 years or so, and 6 7 years, and I'm at a Thanksgiving football game, and one of those students, who you and I spoke about earlier, but approaches me, and he says, "Hey," he says, "I wanted to thank you." And I said, "What for?" And he said, "Well, when you were helping out, you had just graduated college." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You're the only person of color that I personally knew that had gone to college, that had graduated college
Right.
at the time." And now, that young man, went off to Syracuse University, and is doing very well for himself.
Oh, great.
But that little piece, we never had a conversation about that, you know, during those years. Um, but like I spoke about, you and your husband giving me that, entrusting me with your home,
Mm.
the just showing up and being that representation, it means a lot. And I think that's why, I've spent 10 years on the school committee, was, the goal to to be, a representative, in the community, being a diverse community and being only
Right.
the second person of color to ever serve on the school committee.
Yeah.
Dr. Ramos being the first.
First.
I
And
mean, think about that, right?
when I think about that now, Dr. Ramos was on my hiring committee a long time ago. So the gap between when he was on the school committee and when you became a member of the school committee it's ridiculous.
Right.
It really is. It's a really, really wide gap.
Yeah.
And East Providence, as you said, is a very diverse community. And I remember actually we had lived in Providence beforehand, and when we decided to start a family, we were thinking about, well, we didn't necessarily want to stay in Providence. And when we looked at different communities, we chose East Providence for its diversity. I mean, that was one of the selling points for us moving from Providence to East Providence. So, so you ran for school committee. So talk a little bit about what it means because that's not it's not an easy job.
Mhm.
It's not an easy job, and that's putting it mildly. It's not an easy job.
So at the time my kids were in elementary school, the state was in town running the city and the school's finances, and they had taken away middle school sports, and that's when I kind of picked my head up. My daughter was about to go into middle school, and I said, geez, how much could that possibly cost? Like, how do you mismanage to that level? And people are trying to get me, for other reasons, get me involved in politics, which I still to this day don't enjoy the political side of politics. But I thought, you know what, I can look at this from a business approach, and with my years of experience and contribute. And so I jumped in, had some help and support, and one of the things our kids teach us after I had won that first election. I'm in my 5th term now. It's 2-year terms, but after that first one, we were in the car, and my kid said, Daddy, are you nervous now that you're going to be on a school committee? And I was the chair of that first term, and I said, you know what, a little bit, but then I think people before me have done it. Why can't I?
Right.
And again, speaking back to that kid in high school and going into college, and just having that realization that why not me? So
Wow. Well, I, for one, thank you for your service, because that's a thankless job. Well, no, I shouldn't say it's a thankless job, because I follow your Facebook page, and I see a lot of folks thanking you for the work that you've done.
There are, and we had the Honorable Mr. Richard Martin chime in, and he's one of those folks. We have a lot of great educators. And of course, happy for his retirement, but sad, a loss to the district. But no, there are a lot of good people over the years that have consistently given feedback, given input, shown their appreciation, and and have allowed us where we are now is a result of all of that communication that doesn't happen as often as it should. The real conversations, the respectful conversations. So no, there's a lot of good to it.
Yeah. And for folks that are just joining in, I'd like to let you know that our guest this evening is Joel Monteiro, who is a business marketing major from the University of Rhode Island. Joel has been working in business ever since his graduation from the University of Rhode Island, and he is finishing up 10 years on the East Providence School Committee, and also as the chairman of the school committee, and also as co-chair of the building committee for the new high school, the new fabulous to stupendous. I can't wait to get in it so I can see it
when
myself.
you coming in, we gotta
I
Get a kick
am.
in
I
there.
am. I hope to be home again this summer. So this time
Okay.
I get to see it. And so for those of you that are watching this, if you're familiar with that high school, Joel is one of the driving forces behind it, along with his colleague um, that supported this project. And yeah, and we also have yeah, this is so true. So when you were talking about your own kids asking you about if you were nervous. Richard has said our children are always recording everything we do. They're
Oh,
watching
absolutely.
us, our personal children, and our children that were around at school.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're always watching us. They're always watching us, and and paying attention to what we're doing. They see changes in us before we see the changes.
and
Yes,
and they evoke changes, right?
yes,
I mean, when they make those real,
yeah.
you know, statements, when they verbalize those observations, that's when you go, okay, yeah, all right, I hadn't seen it like that. So
Yeah.
um, so
And
yeah,
it,
it's
yeah, and like you said, it's so important. When you were telling the story about the young man who came up to you and said that you were the first person of color that he knew that went to college and graduated from college. That's the main thing, because I always tell students, yes, you can get in there, but you've got to stay in and you've got to
yeah,
graduate. That's the goal. It's not just to get into college. You've got to graduate from college and then go on and not just survive. We want you to thrive.
yeah.
So helping students learn how to do that. So when the high school opened, how did you feel?
Hmm. Oh, it's definitely a proud moment. And it's difficult to there's so many people involved, right? And
Right.
the, that have contributed. So it's definitely a team effort. But thinking of all the hours and that are put in, and thankful for my family that just forfeited that time. I don't know, maybe half. In some way, they were probably like, "All right, good, he's gone because he's kind of getting on my nerves, so he can go to a meeting now." But no, it's a really good feeling, and even more so is being in the building now while it's running, while it's operating, and
Yeah.
seeing the students use it, in the way that you hope that they would, and that the teachers using it, and learning how to use it, because there's so many new facets to this building.
Mhm.
Um, so that I think is more exciting. We just announced the other day that we made the decision on the equipment that will go into the audio video production space, because we built a production studio,
Okay.
a room itself, but our IT guys were kind of saying, all right, let us go research and find the equipment. So the high school administration is already looking at pathways, and possibly
Mhm.
bringing in the first career tech program for the state of Rhode Island in video production. Like, that to me is like,
Yes.
yes, this is why we did this. So
Yes.
no, it's exciting.
That is so amazing. I love hearing that, because there are so many careers today that are involved in video production, social media marketing. There are jobs that are going to come up in those fields that haven't even been invented yet, that haven't
Absolutely.
come about yet. And having students have the opportunity to get that hands-on experience and learn how to do that, it would be absolutely fascinating, because it's so important that um, yes, we're there for the academics, but when students get out of high school, we want them to have a career pathway. We don't want to live in home in mom and dad's basement for the rest of
Mhm.
their life. When we want them to be, gainful, employed citizens, and giving them the opportunity to learn about different things is amazing. And it's what school, it's what education is all about, to help students see their possible selves. And that happens in the best possible ways, and that'll happen in the classroom. It'll happen if they're in those studios, those future studios. It happens out on the sporting fields. Happens in the library, my favorite place. Um, so
Absolutely.
again, it's really important that we have that going on. So one of the things that you said that I thought I want to go back to is you talked about when you went on to the school committee and all the things that come up with being on the school committee, how having that experience, that business experience, transferred over to being on the school committee. And I think that's so important for young folks to understand that the skills that you're going to learn, whether no matter what you major in, no matter what type of position that you take in your future career, you're going to have transferable skills that could be used in other environments. And it's so important that we learn how to give back to our communities. I mean, our communities have given so much to us, so being able to give back to your community and to use those skills is absolutely amazing. You know, you found a way that worked for you.
Yeah, no, yes, very thankful for that, and um, yeah, and might I say, so middle school sports was reinstituted within the first year, so
Yeah.
that was happening anyway. But again, it is, and it's a matter of, when I speak to the representation, and with me being only the second person of color to be on the school committee, I think it's important to note that I think it speaks more to our drive to be involved
Mm,
more than necessarily being shut out. I mean,
right.
there's always that, we're always going to have that battle,
Right.
right? But but the first question is, are we trying to get through the door? Are we trying to put ourselves in that position, or are we just deferring to
Mm,
the regular faces and people that
right.
are all too willing to jump up and make the decision for you, right?
Yes.
And I think it just comes to that point where we say, you know what, no, we have something to say, and we're going to get involved. And I think we're seeing it. The elementary schools started. We've had some administrators that have come in that are phenomenal, some principals, and the
Mhm.
parent involvement from all of our demographics. It's night and day in the last 10 years. And I
Fantastic.
think, and that's where, again, you get your normally underrepresented segments of our community that now say, oh wait, oh, you do want me on that
Yeah.
PTA or PTO, you do want me working that book sale,
Mm,
and and it matters to the kids, right? So
yes.
anyway, yeah, it's
Yeah.
we have to want to be involved.
Yes, we have to want to be involved, and then once we're involved, there has to be a sense that you belong there.
Yes.
And so the powers that be, or who's there before you, have the people have to create an environment. One of my favorite quotes, and I'm going to butcher it. I don't. I'm not going to give it word by word, but Shirley Chisholm would say, "When there isn't a seat for you at the table, bring your own chair."
Yeah.
You know, you find a way, you make a way. And we know we're in crazy times right now. And we just have to continue showing up, continue understanding that representation does matter.
Hmm.
You never know who's watching you. There may be some young boy, some young girl, or some young student out there who is saying, "Hey, I want to think about running for school committee someday because I want to be a part of my community. I want to see there were things maybe I didn't like um, that were going on in my school when I was coming up. So here's my opportunity to go in rather than sitting back and complaining about it. Here's where I can go in and make a positive change. You know, I can go in and do something and help set policy. And it's just so important that kids see folks out there doing that. It's really, really important. Yes, Richard's making a comment here, Mr. Martin. Um, we have to find a way to own the spaces through which we move. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I mean, we all have that imposter syndrome every now and then. We just have to say, hey, you know, we have to figure it out. We have to figure it out. But again, own those spaces. I know
Right.
in my seasoned age, I have learned to own spaces. I have learned to, and even when I'm afraid, even when I'm feeling nervous, I'm like, yeah, but you know what? This too shall pass.
Yes, yes, and when you get to the end of that, whatever that chapter is, you'll look back and you'll say, wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, or
Yeah.
maybe it was, but I made it. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the challenges are going to be that I've had. I look at my career from college, and it was now being I'm almost 18 years with Dentsply Sirona, um, and before that doing Xerox, where I had
Mm.
my 5 years there, and um, after I left uh, the company, getting a settlement check for class action on underpaid minorities, right?
Oh,
So,
okay.
and I don't know if I was supposed to say that company, but it's out there anyway. Um, and again, and it wasn't immediate management. Actually, um, I had two managers during my time there, both men of color, that are just such strong examples of businessmen and their
Right.
approach, and I learned so much. So yeah, this was at a much higher
High level.
level. And then as you said prior to that, when I was with Enterprise, being the first person of color in Rhode Island to be hired, and that was after being turned down twice.
Wow.
Um, you know, uh,
Wow.
and I say that to I think one of the things that's important, and I instill this, or at least I try to with my kids and anybody else, is we have to be willing. We can't be too proud to ask for help, right?
Yes.
In reaching out to those resources, and um, it just so happened that in that situation, after being turned down, and um, I remember my wife, we were dating at the time, but she said, "There's something's not right with that. Like,
Mm.
I know why they didn't pick you, and it's wrong." And she was fired up, and I think we become complacent and indifferent, after dealing with it in so many different
Mm.
cases. So I had reached out to Maddie Lopes, who most of
Yeah.
us know, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know Maddie because he's older than I am, and I'll say that loudly. But he knows my siblings, but I saw him with suit and tie, and I said, you know what? I was trying to find a job, and I couldn't find a job. Had my degree, and I had my permit to drive a truck, which is what my father did. And but I saw him, and I said, Maddie, what do you do for a living? I saw him at a football game. He was at his nephew's game. And he said, well, I'm an attorney, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, okay. And I told him, well, if you know of any leads, you can, give me referrals. This is my deal. And he says, give me a couple copies of your resume. And so he had introduced me to people with the Urban League of Providence and so forth. And then he comes back, and he has this friend who's a VP of a company that had started up in Rhode Island looking for more minority applicants, as he's having a hard time hiring minorities. And I said, oh, what's the company? And it was Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So I told him the story, and he says, all right. So I interviewed with the VP, and yeah, it went extremely well. And the man asked me, he says, why do you think you were turned down the first two times? And I just said, I guess I didn't represent myself well enough. And I left it at that. And he just said, well, I find it hard to believe, but, gave me the job. And that kind of started my business piece. They had some change in HR less
Mm.
than a year later, some new faces. And then they started an internship with Johnson and Wales, bringing in quite a few minority students from Johnson and Wales. So that was a good partnership that started up. But yeah, but again, it went back to if I never asked Maddie for help.
Yes. That is so important that you say that, because one of the things that, I'm always talking with students about, and it's sometimes difficult for them, and they're not understanding sometimes of the importance of it. But first of all, that asking for help. Um, too many people say, "Oh, asking for help is a sign of weakness." No, when you don't ask for help, that's a sign of weakness. And I said, especially when you're transitioning from high school to college and everything is new and different, it is not the 13th grade. It is not the 13th grade. So asking for help and then networking. So like you knew of Maddie, everybody, like, I said, if you're in Rhode Island, Maddie Lopes. If you're in the Black community, you would know Maddie Lopes, and just reaching out to him and strengthening that network. And not only that you reached out to him, but he reached back.
Yes.
He did something with that.
Yes.
He could have just listened to you and went out about his business, but he
Yes.
didn't. And that speaks to who Maddie is anyway.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
But
No, but
yeah,
it's so true, right? And that's that other, you know, there's absolutely the two pieces to it, right? So,
yes,
you have to be willing to show your vulnerability and ask for help,
yes,
but then you have to be willing to care and want to contribute and give the help. And um, yeah, he's all that. And ironically enough, a couple of the interns that I had as a manager were two of
Mhm.
his nephews that came through
Oh,
the
wow.
program afterwards. So yeah,
I
um,
love that they had a partnership with Johnson and Wales. I love. I'm starting to see now quite a few companies um, creating partnerships with the HBCUs.
oh yeah,
Especially what I've been following a lot lately is the aviation field. We have a shortage of pilots, and definitely women and underrepresented minorities are not part of that staffing fleet. So we're starting to see a lot of airlines partnering with HBCUs that have aviation programs in order to bring more people of color, and then also with the other schools, more women into that field. And it's absolutely amazing what happens when you have these great partnerships. And kudos to Johnson and Wales, one of my alma maters, for making that happen, for
yeah,
definitely making that happen. Yeah.
that was good.
And we have a comment here again from Mr. Martin. Again, when you were speaking about Marty being there, pushing you and supporting you, and again, giving credit to our significant others, because yeah, there are days. I know my husband. He thinks I work too much. He said she's always working, but I love what I do. But when I think about it, the support he gives me in the background, because I mean, yeah, I do work a lot, and and he doesn't really complain about it. He knows that I love what I do, and when there are opportunities for him to support me in what I do, he's right there, you know doing whatever he can do to make sure that i can I can live my best life.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and Marty did. She, as you had said at the beginning of the session, right? So she's a recent grad and a new marketing professional.
Yes.
When my job changed so that I was going to be traveling more, she left her full time job in doing insurance
Mm,
and got a job at the school department so that she could be with the kids when they were out of school in
yeah,
case I was traveling.
right.
Uh, and it wasn't until now when they get older. Now she's to me. I always defer if there's a success story.
Yes.
When I take someone in their 40s that says I'm going to school, I'm getting my degree. Usually they're talking about a master's or or something else. And she said, you know what, I never got my bachelor's, and I'm going to do it. Work full time, school full time, and
Yeah. Shout
yeah.
out to Marty Monteiro. So proud of you, Marty, because yeah, girl, you did it. You did it. You are such a role model, and having your children see you do that
Oh,
um, is amazing. And the kids in the school that you worked with, knowing that you were working in the school full time and also working on your bachelor's degree, like Mr. Martin had said earlier, kids are watching us, whether it's our own personal children or the children that we're around. They are watching us do what it is that we do every day. So Marty, I'm just so proud of you. And we have other comments here from Christine saying, yes, definitely proud of Marty. Maybe I have to get Marty on here one day and talk about her college and career journey, because it is. And we often think of going to college, straight out of high school. So when you're a non-traditional student and, you have life experience and full-time parent, full-time job, that's a lot.
definitely.
That is a lot to handle. So, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So, as a parent of two college students, one who is getting ready to graduate in a couple of weeks, what advice would you give to parents to keep their sanity?
Oof. Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, to some extent, right? You got to let them go through the emotions, right? And again, it's a growth piece, right? Admittedly, with Marty going to school at the same time as the kids, I think it quieted a lot of their complaining, because she's working full time and going to school full time. So if they wanted to cry about workload and assignments due, and she's saying, "Really? Do you want to have this conversation?"
Oh,
But it's yeah, probably the toughest thing, right, is letting them experience and feel and struggle, right? And
yes.
they're at that age where it's that in between, where you still feel responsible, even though legally, they're over 18,
Mhm.
but you can't do everything for them. You can only give it as advice now instead of a directive,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's kind of like, well, this is maybe what I would do, but
Yeah.
you got to figure that out.
Yeah. You had a house full of college students in your house all at one time.
Yeah,
All
no,
at one
it's been
time.
interesting. But yeah, that's the thing, and knowing, right, especially again at that age, they know what they're doing, even though you're like, all
Yeah.
right, let me give you some tips. No, you don't understand, right? So it doesn't change much, right?
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't change much, but it's exciting too to see their eyes kind of open up, right? And you kind of touched upon it. I think again maybe earlier when we were talking about one of your sons, and like realizing how many opportunities, how many avenues,
Yes.
or you're talking about jobs that don't exist yet, right?
Mm.
So it's like, to them, they start hearing about all of these different careers, and you go in your first year of college and you just know, the meat and potatoes kind of
Mm-hmm.
jobs, right? Then you go, wait, there's this little niche area here and this one over here, and just list, especially with my daughter now at that, graduating, where she was researching all these different things. Do you
Mm.
know that there's a job where you can do, like, yes.
Yeah. Career awareness, career development, career exploration is so important. And it's one of those things that I really think there are ways that we can do it with very young children where it's developmentally appropriate. Just having them exposed to different careers or knowing that there's different careers. I know, being a first generation college student, um, I didn't see a variety of careers in my household. I mean, my mom for a number of years was a factory worker, and that's what I knew. But I also knew that she worked really hard to try to make ends meet. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I want to work that hard and be that, frankly, and be that poor. And I
Right.
love school and I loved my teachers. So I was so lucky that I had a great experience, except for that first grade teacher who did not like left-handed people. And because I was left-handed, she used to tie my left hand to my chair because she said you could not write with your left hand. That was the
Yeah.
only year. Yeah.
She's
I
not on that list.
all these years later, I remember that first grade teacher who used to tie my hand up to that chair. But yeah, I for me, going into education was a no-brainer. It
Yeah.
was like, that's my heart's passion to be an educator. And
And
we have
I
a
yeah.
comment here. We just have a comment here from the wonderful Marty. Oh, you're so welcome, Marty. Well, she's saying I was the impetus. No, Marty, it was you. But I do remember reading at one point where you were really nervous about whether or not you should go back to school. And I as I said to Marty, when I was debating whether or not to go on to get a doctorate, which was something I had always wanted to do and kept putting it off and putting it off. And then finally, like I was in my 50s, I'm like, oh man, I'm too old. And I'll never forget one of my close friends, Dr. Patricia Naylor, said to me, well, you can be 3 years older with the doctorate or 3 years older without it. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, that's pretty simple. I guess she's right. So I remember passing that on to Marty, and Marty, I am just kudos to you because big applause to you because that is it's just wonderful that you were able to do that. But I know you also had the support, and it's just so important for us to step out of our comfort zones and go out there and do those things that we were meant to do. Because
I think that
yeah.
some of your school districts, at least here, I've seen a few different things that didn't happen when I was way back in the day with career exposure. Right at the middle school when they have a career, instead of it just being college fairs at the high school or career day at the high school, they're doing it at the middle school where they're
Mm,
bringing in people from the community in different trades and careers, which is that exposure. Because that was me, right, coming out. Like I said, I had my permit to drive a truck. My father drove a truck,
mhm.
and you know, from a networking standpoint, he did everything he could. He sent me to more trucking uh, places to maybe they need a manager, right, an
Mm,
operations man. Tell him I sent you down. Like, I mean, God bless him. He was whatever he could, right, but there was a limitation, and that's again why I say we've got to be willing to step out because those of us that are first generations,
yeah.
um, we don't have that network already in place. But um, one of the things I'll also say I learned being on the school committee and working with some of the good people we have is we talk about with Marty being immigrating here and going through back then, right? It was ESL and in
Mhm.
elementary school, right? And there was always the stigma back then where your language learners, they were kind of like, let's just get them up to speed so that they can pass,
Right.
right? And now I remember having a presentation by um, our MLL, they call it now, right? Multi-language learners, I think is the
Yeah.
acronym MLL. Um, Seeing a presentation and where she explained how the MLL students typically score higher on
Mhm.
the standardized tests just because they're they're so accustomed to learning
Yes.
and processing, and so the it's just a new perspective and appreciation. And but you think back where where Marty was not encouraged to go to college. uh,
Mhm.
she was just go to secretary school, right, because that's what that's what you guys do.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's it's refusing to listen and accept and
Right.
stepping out.
I remember back in my days when I was a school counselor at East Providence High School, part of my caseload were at that time was ESL, English as a second language learners. Um, and it was so important to understand the different cultures um, as far as what was considered appropriate for post-secondary and what wasn't. And having those conversations with parents to help them understand that here in the United States, there were different options for their children if they chose to have them. And that used to be a part of my work that I really love. I used to partner with Mary Burke, and just in working with students. And even now, I was talking with you earlier off camera about how much I love LinkedIn, and I'm actually like connected on LinkedIn with a couple of students that were my ESL students back in the 80s and 90s and stuff, and it's so cool to see who they've become today. It really is. It really, really is. I don't know. I just think that we have the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
working in education and being able to also take part of that and give back to your community.
Well, see, one of the other things, and we talk about the diversity, and I don't know if this is where you were going, but it's just when I look back, and I laugh about it, right? But I said that I felt out of place, like I didn't belong when I was in my business classes at URI. The only other, non-whites were the professors, right? The faculty,
Yeah.
which, in the marketing department were mostly Middle Eastern. And the highest grade I ever received may have been the only A that I received in one of my was a marketing class, and the professor had a strong accent, and as soon as he started speaking, the other students in the class, you hear him just kind of groan. So now they just go to the books, and I learn through conversation a lot better than I'm not a reader. I can write if but reading but they just went to the book, highlight. Well, his exams were all essay exams, mainly based off of classroom discussion. And I kid you not when I tell you, I was never the kid to break a curve on a grading, and I remember one exam I had, it was like a 94 or something like that, and the class average was like in the 60s. My friend and I was hiding my exam walking out, right? But I thought their inability to adjust and communicate, with that little cultural change,
Right.
was an obstacle for them. And for me, it was second nature.
Yeah.
And, and then I having conversations, you talk about with the kids. My daughter has said that being away at school, she noticed that her friends at school, those that did not grow up in diverse communities, were a little less open on a college campus that was very diverse. She found that while she could mingle with whomever, those that did not grow up in the same type of community had a hard time stepping out of their normal.
Yes.
So yeah, that's absolutely a strength, right? I mean, as few opportunities as we feel we might have, I think in some ways we're more prepared to jump into different situations and environments than others might be.
That is so true. That is so true. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're hearing all this about all these DEI committees, and it has to be more than a checklist. It really has to be a way of life. It's not something we just do because, oh yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. We benefit from different perspectives. We benefit when different cultures are brought into the fold, and we're learning so much from each other. I learn so much from other people, from other cultures, other religions, other backgrounds. It's just amazing because you can't know it all. You can't know it all. So having folks um, who are willing to teach you and help you learn beyond what you know is amazing. That is the American way. It should be. That's what we're supposed to be.
Yeah. And
That's
we
what,
have to, and I've said this several times in conversations, right? Being a person of color, it's very easy to come in to a situation defensive, right, and
Mhm.
kind of demanding, like, you're gonna accept me, and you're not going to judge me, and I'm going to demand that you see me as equal, and we don't always pause just to say, okay, let me understand why this person is struggling to see me and accept me, and because there's a two-way learning opportunity
Mm,
in most situations that we have some ownership in as well. So
that
I
is
try
so
to.
true. That's so true. Oh, Joel, this has been, you don't know how this makes my heart so happy having this conversation with you. It's educators don't make a lot of money. And I always tell people that our payoff, our salary, our riches are watching our kids, thrive in their lives, and watching you come up not only as a student, even though I never had you in school, but as a neighborhood kid who I got to see, grow up and uh, marry a beautiful woman and have two gorgeous kids who are both doing well. It is just, I don't know, it's just really nice to see that. And shout out to your mom for doing a good job, and Big Bob, may he rest in peace, for doing a great job. Um, yeah, this was really good. I am
And you guys, right? You and your husband were role models, so for me, because educated, working, just supportive, of a kid who they didn't get to claim on their taxes, right? But um, I mean, you guys were, you showed me how, what it means to really give back, and um, so yeah, no, that goes, and I'm sure I'm one of a few. So
Oh, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
yeah, it definitely
So,
takes a village.
So before we go, one of the things I'm doing this new thing every now and then where we're really trying to get folks to, let me see if I can do this right. Um, just a little something for folks who have joined in the conversation. So we're going to do a little giveaway here today. I'm going to give away a little something, something. So for those of you that are still on, if you put in the comments, hashtag Townie Pride, because as I said at the beginning, I have on all my Townie Pride paraphernalia, my little red earrings, because our colors are red and white, my Townie jacket, one of my yearbooks. Oops, here is my Townie bobblehead that was designed by one of our fantastic art teachers. So I need people to put in the comments, hashtag Townie Pride, and then I will spin the wheel and we will see. And actually, what I usually do, because I love reading so much, so I usually send a gift certificate to a book company. Um, and I do tend to, well, not do tend, but I support Black and Brown book dealers. And I just discovered this new place. It's called I Am Black Lit. And I found out that she actually was from Fayetteville, and she's now in Texas. And she has this fantastic online bookstore. She's getting ready to open up her first brick and mortar in Texas. She's been featured in Oprah's site and what have you. So So Mrs. Monteiro put in hashtag. You got to put a hashtag before the Townie Pride, so that we can get you in on this deal. So make sure you do that. I'll give you a moment, Mrs. Monteiro. You got to do that hashtag sign there. There you go. There you go. Okay, so we are now going to draw, and let's see who is going to win that gift certificate. Christine! Yay! Yay! So, Christine, I will get in touch with you in order to make sure I have your address and everything correct so that I can get that to you. Congratulations to our winner, Christine Monteiro de Barros. Yay, yay, yay. Joel, again. Whew. I told my husband, I said, hey, guess who my guest is tonight? Joel. You know him. Yeah, all right. So I thank you so much for the wisdom that you shared with us this evening. I thank you so much for your service of 10 years on the East Providence School Committee and seeing through what is one of probably the best high school in the state of Rhode Island. So I thank you so much, Joel, and everyone that joined in this evening. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to be part of this conversation. It's so important that we have conversations with each other, that we understand that representation matters for a reason. And we definitely want to make sure that we get an opportunity to continue doing this. Yes, and as your sister, we are so, yes, we are. We're all proud of Joel. We really are. We really
well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. B, and my family that's down here, my sister, my mom, Marty, and Mr. Martin. And I will say, we talk about representation in, Mr. Martin retiring, but his impact on the students, and Karen, running our pre-K. Again, having someone that understands the importance of acceptance and equity and inclusion, and at that early age is a huge asset, I think, for our district. So
yes. So everyone, we will come back with college and career conversations with Dr. B. Joel, hang on for a second. Next week, where we will actually have a representative from the healthcare field. Because one of the things I wanted students to do as they consider careers in healthcare is to think beyond what they know as being a doctor or a nurse. So we will have somebody with us that works in a clinical lab, actually is the director of a clinical lab with a major in biology and chemistry. So you join us next week for that, folks, and we will definitely see you. And again, take care and enjoy the rest of your evening.